So a couple days ago, I just put out a new video with examples of some lesser known transitional fossils and just talking about transitional fossils as being a good, compelling line of evidence for evolution. And this guy, made by Jimbob, resident creationist and political commentator, decided to do a
Oh
little
no.
reaction video to my transitional fossils video. And I was listening to the first few minutes of it, and I was like, okay, yeah, there's so much that Dok and I could talk about with this guy's commentary in particular.
So you came from a monkey, and you came from something that was hunched over, and then you came from before that was a puddle. But you're also made in the image of God. How's that? How do you square that? How do you square that?
Yeah.
Is he talking about you?
No, he's talking about another person who's a theistic evolutionist, who's a Christian who accepts evolution. So he doesn't understand how you can believe that you're made in the image of God and evolution be true. And he decided to characterize evolution as believing that you came from something hunched over, and before that it was a puddle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know your personal views on it. I don't mind theistic evolutionists
No, I don't at all.
generally.
If
Like,
you're a Christian
yeah,
and you accept scientific evidence for what we know about the world, then I don't have an issue because you're not pushing pseudoscientific garbage.
same here. And I am happy to say that well, at least I have a few family members who are theistic evolutionists. Not sure about all of them, but at least a few. The
What point did you acquire? Huh? At what point did you acquire the status of moral culpability in your journey from sludge to monkey? Was that in between monkey? Well, let's look at the storyline here. We'll look at the storyline. I'm gonna look at two videos, and then I'm gonna check out TikTok, unless you guys really want Proud on the Spot. But this Proud on the Spot gets brutal really quick.
okay.
So,
I mean,
do you want to engage with that point at all? At what point you acquire moral culpability? It's like unlocked achievement, moral culpability.
like hard to say. Like social structures,
Yeah, exactly.
like
Like,
they're present in primates.
yeah, exactly. Once you have like, the primitive semblances of a society, some sort of social grouping, then you're gonna start having like behaviors that are acceptable within that social uh, setting, and behaviors that are not acceptable and could make you outcast. And you start having the rudimentary, like the rudiments of a moral culpability for individuals.
Yeah, and it gradually just grows more complex as the species grows more complex. Like
Exactly.
it's not hard to understand if you give it a few seconds.
Well, he's definitely trying not to understand, as we will see. You will let it play
Oh,
here.
dear.
They get very upset most of the time. And why are they named Matthew? What is that? Some sort of like joke? Is God playing a joke, guiding parents to name so many people Matthew? Oh, the Matthews.
I mean, it's a common name, man.
All right, let's see what this guy has
The
to say.
discovery of transitional fossils is one of the most compelling lines.
Was that a Chronosaurus there?
I not sure. I think it might have been a plesiosaur,
I
but
think
I'm
it
not
was.
sure. I just looked at a cool fossil to start the video with. He also rags on me for my choice of pictures that I decide to include in the video as well. So we'll see plenty of that.
Huh. I mean, I'm not ragging on it. If it is Chronosaurus, Chronosaurus are freaking cool. Pliosaurs are neat.
The most compelling lines of evidence for evolution, because the theory of evolution actually allows us to predict the anatomy that these ancient skeletons
Post prediction, right?
will have. Even
look at that cute little CGI thing. Look,
I mean, not post prediction, just prediction.
Yeah, post prediction isn't even anything. I mean, there's a post diction or retro diction, but post prediction, no. And Tiktaalik was predicted before it was discovered. There's no post diction about it.
Yeah, like I know we want to keep this a bit shorter than most streams, but for those interested, look into the story behind the discovery of Tiktaalik. It's really interesting and really is just like a triumph of how far evolutionary biology has come.
And he immediately rags on me for choosing like this image, which like he doesn't like it whenever I show any illustration at all in the entire video. And then whenever I show images of the fossils, then he just moves the goalposts or ignores it, as you're about to see. Like he's complaining I use CGI, and then the very next image is the fossil itself, and then just wait here to hear how he characterizes that.
That there'd be a
I'm
CGI
scared.
of someone holding a weird, cute salamander alligator. Prediction number 1 complete.
Before their fossils
It
are
is
unearthed.
that.
Look at that picture. Clearly, he's got the tip of a beak of some sort of fish alligator that's squished, and he proved it. He's got a pen in hand. He's got his tie. They proved it. That there's his transitional fossil beak.
The most
But-
common examples of transitional
Really?
fossils.
Yeah. Fossil beak. Wow.
Come on, like Neil Shubin. Neil Shubin seems like a really cool dude, honestly. Come on,
Yeah.
man.
And they predicted.
He's happy he found a fossil he predicted. Like
Yeah.
that's cool.
Like they literally predicted its anatomy before it was unearthed from the ground. I mean, and now he just want to say, "Oh, it's some kind of alligator type lizard fish, and like it's just somehow a transitional." Like, dude, its anatomy literally is transitional. Like its anatomy itself. I mean, come on.
Fossils often brought up in discussions include Archaeopteryx, of course, which was one of the first of these strange hybrid-looking creatures predicted to exist by Charles Darwin himself.
Look at him. You just show a picture of him and a letter, and it legitimizes everything. That's all you do. You just make a claim.
Would you like it if he cited the exact page in Origin of Species?
Right?
I forget. Did you do that?
No, like I
Oh.
mean, I didn't think it was necessary. It's pretty common knowledge that in Origin of Species, like, you know, Charles Darwin predicted a fossil like Archaeopteryx. It's not like, you know, I'm just trying to show images that match the voice of what I'm saying. It's not like the images I'm trying to show provide like a bibliography of sources. It's just something visual to look at while you're listening to the video. And notice
Right.
I just showed an actual image of the fossil of Archaeopteryx, and he doesn't say anything about it at all. And then he's about to complain about me showing an illustration of Archaeopteryx and say, why aren't I showing the fossils?
Consistency is a lost art, apparently.
Pair it with a picture with some old writing, and the doofus scientism class. Oh, smart beard, man, peacoat, old letters writing.
Himself, and was found just 2 years after
Okay.
the theory of evolution was introduced.
So 2 years after they assumed something, they went out and tried to find evidence to support the starting assumption of X being true. That's what's called confirmation bias. That's what's called.
I mean, it wasn't found by Darwin, but also no.
Yeah, like that's not confirmation bias. Like having a hypothesis and then going to look and do tests, like observational tests of whether or not you can find evidence for your hypothesis is not just confirmation bias. That's a scientific method.
I mean, do you think this guy ever passed a science class?
He's very anti-intellectual, so it would surprise me if he even graduated high school.
Oh my.
Called starting with the conclusion. Now, see this? So he says, look, just 2 years.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Darwin also predict Microraptor?
I don't think that was Darwin, but Microraptor was predicted based on, I think, Archaeopteryx, the skeleton. They predicted that there would be like something similar to Archaeopteryx, but with 4 wings. I don't think that was Darwin, though. But Microraptor is another example of a verified prediction using evolutionary principles. So,
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, apparently it was a different Charles, Charles William Beebe.
Ah, nice. And yeah, he just said that it's like assuming your conclusion, but like it's not though. Like going to look to see if your predictions are true is not assuming your conclusion. It's reifying your hypothesis based on evidence. That is the scientific method.
Oh, also, apparently, Donnie has been mentioning you on his stream, Grayson.
Oh, a joy, I'm sure.
And that's terrifying. Also, I do love this Sailor Moon knows more about the scientific method than this guy. Oh, dear.
Years after, they were like, hey, evolution stuff. They found, and what does he do? He brings up a picture someone drew of a bird dragon. Evidence.
bearing the teeth and skeletal structure similar.
Only one of the most well-known fossils ever, but okay.
And I literally also just showed the picture of the fossil like 10 seconds before this. So,
You know, I think if you just put like a picture of the fossil and a drawing side by side, he'd start spinning.
he would just say, "Oh, you're just making an assumption and inference and blah 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 blah." He'd still have issues. You'll see what he does with moving the goalposts a little bit later when I actually show a fossil.
Oh dear.
Similar to that of a velociraptor, but with the feathers and wings of a bird.
Oh, okay. So there it is. So first of all, they suppose that they have this fully formed dinosaur called the velociraptor, and then they go, look, it's similar things.
Sorry, no, we have velociraptor.
Right? He says you assume that you have
skeleton.
velociraptor.
Like if we want to take up, or if we want to talk about famous fossils, the fighting dinosaurs, complete velociraptor. Like we have that. We've had that for nearly a century now.
Look, if you just want to assume that you have this dragon bird.
Oh no. Well, actually, apparently we've had it for 53 years. I thought it was discovered earlier, but I guess it is an assumption. I've only seen the damn bones.
Must be transitional. That's the entire argument for evolution. Similar things must be in between things. That's how easy it is to dupe these people. Similar stuff equals in between stuff. So if it's similar, it's in between, and therefore it's transitional. We don't bada bing, bada boom. Bada boom. Hypothesis.
It's its actual anatomy that is transitional. Like it's not that we're assuming it's transitional. It's literally its observed anatomical features that are definitionally, categorically transitional features.
And we see these features change over time in the fossil record. So they are transitioning from one to the next.
And so
we literally see this.
For this next little portion, he kind of gets into it with a commentator, this BS Lewis guy. So
I've seen him before.
Yeah, he tried to call him out and say, it's not a conclusion, it's a hypothesis. So just this is just a very telling interaction here.
Just no BS. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be overusing this today. I'm going to be a little easier on you, BS. I'm going to ask you first instead of telling you. Can you tell me what's required for a viable hypothesis, please? I'm going to hold on this because this is important information. This is actual education here, BS.
I mean, how would you define a hypothesis?
He's just fishing for the answer of an observation, like in the 7th grade version of the scientific method, where you go like observation, hypothesis, experiment, that kind of thing.
Oh.
So he's just trying to fish for the answer that an observation is required for a hypothesis. And then he'll claim that evolution is never observed. Therefore, you cannot even hypothesize it.
Oh,
That's his argument here.
yeah, that's a little stupid.
A little.
Can you tell me what's required for a viable hypothesis in science, please, sir? What's the first thing we need before a hypothesis, sir? Let's put the echo on. Sir, BS in the back. Can you please tell me the testability? No, that is not the first thing you need before a hypothesis, sir. Give you another chance. Give you another chance in the back. You need a realistic drawing first, obviously. No, give you another chance, BS. What's the first step in the scientific endeavor? BS. Money. Yeah. Now we're talking. Observation. Mark English B wins. W's in the chat for Mark. Already knowing more than BS Lewis. In the realm of science and its methodology, you need to observe something. Okay. Next, for testability, sir, you don't need an observation. Okay. How do you make a hypothesis? Can you give me one? This is great. This is actually better than getting into the video. Got to put my echo on here. BS, could you give me one example of a viable hypothesis that can start without an observation, please? One example, please. Thanks. Just run it up to the classroom. Run it up to the teacher's desk. Why don't you go up and get out of your desk and...
Okay.
Yeah, we can kind of skip through this like exchange that he has with BS a little bit, because they kind of go back. I mean, they kind of get it off the track a little bit, and then I think they get back to the video around like 33 minutes or so. But
okay.
Basically, yeah, he's going to claim that evolution is not based on observations, like the initial hypothesis that Darwin proposed was not even based on observations. It's like, what do you think that he was doing that whole journey of the HMS Beagle, making observations? Maybe the observations of like a morphological hierarchy or like a nested hierarchy of morphology in the animal kingdom, or maybe how he was
finding
observing
fossils.
Yeah, fossils that we observe, or the fact that, biogeography observations. There's a lot of observations that lead to developing a hypothesis like evolution that was then tested and verified. That's why it graduated to a theory.
Yeah, pretty much. But, I mean, like, you do usually need a hypothesis. Or, sorry, you do usually need an observation.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. If I was B.S. Lewis, I would not have gone with this line of argumentation to try to claim that you don't need an observation before a hypothesis.
Because, like, hypothesis is a proposed explanation.
Yeah.
So you need to observe a phenomenon before you can figure out, well, I mean, you can predict based on what you know of phenomena that something will happen. So I guess in that situation, you don't need an observation to begin with? I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too hard about this.
You definitely are.
Maybe write me a note so you're not embarrassed. Tell me one viable hypothesis that you can present without starting with
were we going to skip to 33 minutes?
Thanks.
Right.
Because, like, I don't want to sit through 5 minutes of him talking with this guy.
Definition would be, things in the past exist, things today exist, and I presume it changed from then to now. Therefore, something that looks similar that's not quite either means it's a transition. That's what he calls a pure transitional fossil.
So another commonly cited example.
Maybe that was a little bit too late there. I go back a little bit, because he takes umbrage with me saying that it's a pure example of a transitional fossil.
Oh dear.
What are you hypothesizing? Remember self of what a B.S. Lewis.
Okay, they're still fighting there.
His position. BS guy? I don't know. I mean, I don't want him banned, just so the mods know. We have got a strict no ban on BS and iron. They are our resident pinatas. Let's get back to the video. BS is already got demolished in 3 minutes.
A pure example of a transitional fossil.
Hey, did you guys hear the word? A pure example. Pure means it's flawless. It can't be questioned. It's a dogmatic, pure example of a transitional fossil. Fossil, by the way, the definition would...
I mean, it is what we expect a transitional fossil to be. It is a very good example.
Yeah, I use an adjective for emphasis. Oh my
Mhm.
god, I've fallen victim to the dogma.
Like I would I'm gonna guess you wouldn't use that word in a publication, but just in common parlance, like yeah, no problem dropping that. It's fine,
Would be
fine.
things in the past exist, things today exist, and I presume it changed from then to now. Therefore, something that looks similar that's not quite either means it's a transition. that's what he calls a pure transition
No,
fossil.
it's
Another
literally its anatomy itself that is transitional. Like the anatomy of these fossils is what makes them a transition. Like you do not have to presume a transition from one to the other. This is not, you don't have to assume that at all. Like you can use that to formulate your hypothesis of what anatomical features should be observed in the fossil record if your hypothesis is true. But finding an actual fossil that has that transitional anatomic features, you don't have to assume any of that. Its transitional features themselves are what make it a transitional fossil. It's its anatomy.
Yep. And again, we observe a transition through time. Like we don't presuppose it happened, we literally see it happen.
And like here I am again showing actual fossils. Let's see if he then immediately starts complaining the next time I use an illustration.
Ooh.
commonly cited example is Australopithecus.
Oh, look at that. Why not just bring up another CGI or Hollywood-made mask with some smiling teeth and just to really nail it home?
It's a good sculpture. What are you on about?
And I just showed fossils. I just showed the skulls. Like personally, I think that the video would be a lot more boring just showing the fossils. I think that the illustrations and the sculptures like really bring it to life and make for some
How dare
compelling
you?
visuals.
Now that's just evolutionist imagination bringing things to life.
It just makes it a lot more fun, okay? Like if you can do the whole thing, I could have made the whole video just showing purely just the fossils themselves. And like, Doc, I know you love
Mhm.
fossils, but like, you know,
Yeah.
I like seeing these creatures look more like, you know, how they might have looked when they were alive. It's
Mhm.
fun.
Oh shit. Yeah. The weird thing is, I literally just heard like basically this same conversation earlier today. I was watching a review about an old documentary to try and drum up some ideas for my own review. And they brought up, the only way you can get this to be probably 100% scientifically accurate is to just have a grad student or someone who's been researching this their entire life sitting you in a room with the fossils we have. No one's going to watch that.
Yeah.
You need to fill in the gaps a bit and make a story so people watch it. And that will inevitably introduce some inaccuracies. But that doesn't negate the truth that it is based on. It was like a commentary on how every documentary eventually becomes outdated.
Well, yeah, but it's fun, okay? I think this
Mhm.
guy's just anti-fun.
Well, anti-fun when it goes against him. Or his beliefs, I guess.
Don't show the methodology of finding and categorizing the fossils, right? Don't
You could look that up. That's not what this video is about.
show, I don't know, the 5 to 7 to 15% of the total bone structure that they're finding, and then all of the interpolation and extrapolations that they're doing with casts and models and simulators. Don't do that.
We have almost complete skeletons from this species. Well, from this genus.
Yeah, like Littlefoot is like what 80 or 90% complete, like just in one
Something like
specimen.
that, yeah.
And we have like hundreds of like individual specimens of Australopithecus, and like over a dozen that are like mostly complete. Like we have a very good idea of especially like their skull anatomy. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that this guy has any idea. Like, maybe he's just thinking about Lucy, but like even Lucy was like a pretty complete skeleton.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, it's just, oh god, I mean, yeah, he's just riddled with so many inaccuracies, and like he's complaining that I don't show like the entire methodology of like how they found Australopithecus, how they dug it out, how they reconstructed it, what like how they all put it together, and then how they like that again. This is the introduction for my video where I'm just trying to provide an overview for as many interesting examples of transitional fossils as possible. Specifically in this introduction, I wanted to just breeze past the most commonly cited examples so that I could get to some of the lesser known ones. Like, this is just the introduction. The point of my video is not to go into detail all about the finding of Australopithecus. Like, this is just my
Yeah.
introduction.
Yeah, yeah, like that's totally fair. That's not the purpose of the video. And anyone who is interested in learning more can go look up that information. Like, how many documentaries do you think there are on Lucy? Like Lucy alone? Probably at
Over a
least a
dozen.
dozen. Yeah, like the information is out there.
It's spurging occasionally. Is it? Let me see. Let me make sure. Maybe it's peaking a little bit. Here we go. It's probably peaking. Let me bring it down a little bit. Thanks for that. Evolution of the gaps. Yeah. No wonder they say God of the gaps, because their entire system of evolution is gap filling. Why?
I mean, we find fossils that fill the gaps.
Yeah, I don't understand what that like evolution of the gaps is even supposed to be saying, or like what he's trying to say there. Yeah, we predict what the gap should look like, and then we go out and we find actual fossils with anatomical features that match those predictions. So, yeah.
Yeah, we fulfill a prediction. Crazy.
And then this
Why do the
question
artist's
here,
renderings always depict?
why do the renderings always depict monkeys with human eyes? Like, there are examples of primates that do have like the whites of their eyes. Like, these are not
Yeah.
exclusive to human eyes.
Yeah, crazy thing I learned from studying anthropology. Apes have ape eyes. The fact that humans also have ape eyes might tell you something. Sorry.
Human monkeys with human eyes. Well, they have to complete it, right? They have to make it work. They have to force the circle. Raphael, $5. Thank you so much. If evolution were true, transitional fossils should compose 99% of the fossil record, but we have like 5 agreed upon transitionals from secularists. Yeah.
I accept that every fossil is transitional.
Yeah, like in a technical sense, every fossil is a transitional fossil, and there's like so many more than 5. Like in my video alone, I think I covered like 20 or so. Like, I mean, this is just the most ignorant comment. And like like evolution typically tends to stabilize species around fitness peaks, and then when you have changes in their environment or in their niche, then you start having adaptations to find another fitness peak. So you can have like pretty stable morphology for a long amount of evolutionary time if that niche that they're adapted for continues to be a viable niche for millions of years. The moment it's no longer a viable niche, then you have to change your morphology to adapt to a new niche. Like, this is how evolution works. Like, you can have stasis for relatively long amounts of time throughout the fossil record if that niche continues to be viable for all that time.
Mhm. Almost like evolution follows a pattern of punctuated equilibrium. It's really, really weird.
Fill it in. And then they say, yeah, but it's really rare. Keep in mind, fossils based on bones, or in their categories, vertebrae, as opposed to invertebrate. Did you guys know that only about
What?
5% of all known
He's
Okay, no, sir, you have vertebrae. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, I mean, I think like he could have just said fossils based on bones because he's trying to talk about like how most species are not vertebrates, but he confusing vertebrae with vertebrates. Yikes.
Little off, buddy. Little off.
Animals, all known animals, only around 5%, give or take, have bones. So then they go, well, yeah, I mean, if only 5% of animals have bones and we're trying to fix this puzzle to make it work, trying to make this story work, we have an excuse of why there's such minimal. They're like, it takes such a perfect environment to make a good fossil. Oh, it makes them sexier to change their eyes. Yeah. Yeah, they should add more eyelashes and stuff. All right.
Okay. But also, like, we have a crap ton of invertebrate fossils.
Yeah.
Oh, like, we have a lot of them because many of them have shells.
I highlight an invertebrate transitional fossil like it as one of my very early examples in this video that he's going to cover. So and like in Lagerstätten we do have like really excellent fossilization conditions that can preserve soft body fossils that don't have any bones at all or any exoskeletons.
Now, here's the real question. Is the Tully monster a vertebrate?
Pass.
Obviously, evolution is meant to legitimize bestiality. I actually brought that argument up, Mr. Westford.
What?
What? What?
This guy's profile picture is exactly the guy who I would expect that question from.
I want to turn us away from her cousin, Billy May.
This is the most like absurd point I've ever seen. And the fact that Jimbob just is like, yeah, I've actually brought up that point before. Like, it's like, dude.
Yeah, of course you have.
Like, I would almost guarantee, just as a percentage, the amount of humans in the world today that actually participate in bestiality, I would almost guarantee that the majority of them reject evolution. Like,
Oh,
they're
dear.
all like, fundamentalist, backwoods kind of people.
Oh, dear. Oh, right. And we have people asking who this guy is again. This is MadebyJimbob. And
14,000 subscribers.
I do just have to ask to make sure you're sure this guy isn't a parody?
I am absolutely positive, yeah.
Oh, no.
What would be wrong? What would be wrong from their view of trying to produce, have some coitus with an ape, with a great ape?
Because it's
I don't understand.
non-consensual. It's
Yeah,
like
you
an
can't
animal cannot
consent.
consent to you having sex with them.
And also, personally, not into that. You mammals are weird.
Yeah, it's very weird, very gross, and you cannot have consent for that. So it's wrong on just about every level.
Yeah. And I mean, look, even if you want to strip away, like, I don't know, morals, I mean, most like animals are stronger than you that most people would want to do that with, and serious risk of injury and or disease. So there you go.
Yeah, there you
No
go.
morals, there's an
There's
argument
lots and
for ya.
lots of reasons why bestiality is wrong and nobody should do it. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the theory of evolution at all. This is just like, quite frankly, absurd.
Oh, dear.
And how they could possibly argue
I
against it. Maybe
should
they'd
have
say
brought a
consent.
drink tonight.
But I mean, if you can say, well, gorillas can consent to painting a picture, I mean, what are they arguing? What's the
What are
problem?
you arguing?
How
What?
many paintings have you fucked?
What? Yeah. What does consent have to do with painting a picture? Like, what? This is just beyond parody at this point. Like, the fact that this guy is actually serious is just like
Well, like,
sad.
is he saying that we should teach gorillas to paint hentai? Is that what he's saying?
I don't even want to know what he's saying, honestly. Like, he's saying that because gorillas can paint pictures, then they should be able to consent to have sex with him.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
The long searched for missing link between humans and more basal ape species, or Tiktaalik, the transitional fossil between ocean-dwelling fish and land vertebrates. Scientists actually predicted not only its anatomy beforehand, but even the location where they would find it. Whale and horse evolution.
What a surprise. The Royal Society and the fancy boys with the shovels and the money, they predicted where to find it. They just, just add that.
It was Neil Shubin at the University of Chicago.
The fancy
Not the
boy with
wrong
the money
continent.
and the shovels. He had shovels, Doc.
Yeah,
like-
shovels are super fancy.
And like, what is he even insinuating here? Like, what a surprise. Oh, they predicted exactly where to find their transitional fossil and then they found it? Huh, what a surprise. Like, what is he even saying?
I'm not sure he knows.
Yeah.
Although there is one thing I do have to nitpick on you for a second about Tiktaalik there. I think the current hypothesis is that it would have lived in an inland marsh or something like that.
Yeah.
Not so much ocean.
Yeah, that's true.
Minor nitpick. That's all.
But I don't think I don't know. I don't think I was implying that it was ocean dwelling.
But you said it was transitional between ocean dwelling fish and land animals.
Yeah, it is.
I guess. Oh, yeah. I guess this guy has me in a pedantic mood. I'm sorry.
Add to the storyline. Transitional horse to whale. Wait, is this new? Is this a new thing? The horse to the whale? Oh no, they're comparing horse and whale. Yeah. Look at how similar the skulls are. Therefore, horse whale. I mean, I guess.
What?
I mean,
There's no whale.
these are
on
all
screen.
these are all horses.
Yeah, they're all horses. There's no whale on screen. I said two other examples are horse and whale evolution, and then I showed a picture of a horse, and then I showed a picture of a whale, but he paused and confused himself. And yeah, Dr.
fair,
Don in the comments, citation needed.
Yep. Citation would be nice. Oh, just a second.
Yeah, he basically just confused himself by pausing and not being able to follow what is being said while just seeing horse evolution on screen and thinking that those are whale skulls. I mean, yeah. This guy is definitely not our best and brightest.
Should we send him to the moon though?
No. Press play.
Michael Rudko, member for 15 months. Evolutionists will say Christians have blind faith while they never see their own theories of an ape evolve. They never see any of it. They don't even see the data, by the way. They get delivered a bunch of children's books that are for adults, and they lay out these.
I've seen the data.
Very simplistic chronological storylines that are filled with picture gaps, and you're like, ooh, yeah, that makes sense.
Are also very commonly brought up when discussing transitional fossils. But today, I want to shine a light on some lesser-known examples, the ones that aren't brought up as much.
I really got to get into. I feel like I'm missing out now that AI is here. It's probably not worth pursuing, but I really missed out. I really could have. I'm much louder. Let me see if I can, because on my screen it's not hitting the peak. So let me see if I can change this here. Lower my gain. Maybe that's good. I really gotta. Myth Vision. No, this is based theory. It's based theory.
I cannot even hope to cover all the hundreds of known transitional fossils.
Look at I just love how the affirmative of the knowledge is just a lot of pictures.
In this video.
Look, see, that's all you need. There it is, guys.
Except
a
for
new
all the
alligator
fossils.
Yeah,
seal.
there are fossils. There are fossils for all of these. And yeah,
What?
this is a basal mosasaur.
Yeah, like I said, just show a fossil and a drawing on screen, and he'll start spinning in his chair.
Yeah, like all he does is just rag on me for showing illustrations because they're cool and fun to look at. Like, there are
Yeah.
fossils for all of these. I could have shown the fossils for all of these, but like most people are not trained paleontologists, and when they see a fossil, they can't really tell what they're looking at. And so when you see an actual illustration of what the creature probably looked similar to, you can see a lot more easily what is being illustrated rather than like looking at a fossil that you're like kind of like I don't because you're not a trained paleontologist.
Yeah, it's something I'm kind of having to deal with right now in the stuff I'm working on.
A newt alligator seal. There you go. I really missed out on the. It's probably a huge. I mean, 20 years ago maybe. Huge opportunity in illustrating for evolution.
But I wanted to highlight some of the cool and interesting ones. When two species are genetically similar, like adjacent groups on a phylogenetic tree, we tend to find fossils that have intermediate features converging on a common ancestor of both groups.
Okay, so
Oh, hey, I know that Homo sapiens. Mary Anning's cool.
the view is that after so many years, I mean, like so many thousands of years, right? That they have this assumption of convergence, but yet their basis for convergence is minimal assumptions about fact, about the way they describe.
No. We anticipate divergence, and going back in time, we see we see different lines converging. That's what we expect to see in evolution.
Yeah, like we can literally see that with the anatomical features. Like they I mean, come on.
Like if we were to find, I don't know, let's say crocoduck, that'd be really freaking weird.
Describe certain skulls. I mean, they're basically taking like the tiniest fraction of what you would want as far as supporting evidence, and then they just go, see these skulls. There's similarities, but we just happen to have found.
Grayson, how dare you hurt? How dare you hurt his feet? Wow, sorry, I'm terrible with name. How dare you hurt Rodney's feelings?
I'm just stating facts.
The ones that fit together, right? Out of all of the things you can find. Now, this is speaking of unfalsifiability. Where did BS go? What did he get? He got laughed out of the bar. I always ask someone this. I'd ask Base Theory, who's doing this video, the same thing. If you found all of the same skulls, how would you? Let's say you found all the same skulls and you described them the same way individually. How would you then falsify your theory that these skulls demonstrate transitional evolution? How would you do?
Well, he asked you a question.
Okay, yeah. What do you think he means by that question? He's saying, so let's say, for instance, that we find all of the fossils in the fossil record, the one that were predicted by evolution, and they have all the same transitional anatomies. How would you then falsify evolution, given that you just keep finding so much evidence for it? Well,
I think that's what he's asking. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I'm glad I'm not the only one whose brain's hurting right now.
Yeah. So if you were to find a fossil that had transitional features for two very distantly related groups, like the crocoduck that you brought up earlier, that would maybe not be sufficient to invalidate all the other transitional fossils that you found, but you would be questioning stuff. If you found a diverged group in a layer where it's way too early for that type of animal to have evolved in, like if you didn't like the famous example is a rabbit in the Cambrian, that would also help to falsify evolution. If we found all these really derived mammals in really early layers, with where there's no transitions to them in earlier layers than that, then you've falsified evolution.
And like, to bring up the idea of convergence again, if you were able to produce, say, an inter-order, like in the phylogenetic sense, inter-order hybrid, I'd be questioning a lot of things.
Yeah.
Do that because that's what you would need if you wanted to validate.
Can we get a bear dog in here?
Oh, it's coming.
Hypothesis
Oh
You'd have
no.
to find evidence, and then you'd have to be able to falsify the evidence. So the finding the evidence can't be the verification process. Do you know what I mean? You can't point to the evidence and say that's it. You go, okay, how do we determine whether this is the case that there's transition, or are there any other options? Maybe just varying skulls. maybe just like, the fact that humans can have bulged skulls and different deformities across, over time. How many times does that happen?
Yes, none of these ideas have ever been interrogated, and there's no possible way any of those could be falsified.
Yeah, like he's able to accommodate these variations by just saying, "Oh, well, there's a lot of different types of skulls. There's a lot of variety." But evolution is able to predict these anatomies before they're discovered. Evolution predicts, creationism accommodates. There's clearly a difference there. And being able to have predictive power is superior to just being able to accommodate it by saying, well, God can create any kind of animal he wants. So any kind of fossil we found can just be designed by God, versus we make the prediction that this type of fossil with this anatomy that's never been seen on Earth should be found in this layer, and then going out and looking and finding it.
Mm-hmm. Like, there'd be a huge difference between either saying or predicting that you will find a ceratopsid in the Pleistocene, like Pleistocene rocks, versus we will find a ceratopsid or a ceratopsian with intermediate features between ceratopsians and basal ornithischians earlier in time than we find normal ceratopsids. And we have found one of those. We have not found the other. I don't know if that made any sense.
It did, but you might have confused some of the non-paleontologists. You definitely, if you try to tell that to this guy, he would have no idea what you're saying.
Fair.
Your assumption is you find a couple of skulls and you basically say, this skull represents the entirety.
Sorry, it just hit me. He kind of sounds like a dumber Ben Shapiro.
Skull represents the entirety of a civilization that's now gone. But thank God we just found one.
This type of pattern should only happen if evolution is true.
No, that's question begging. See, this is exactly what I just asked. Why is it the case that should only happen? How did you determine that finding different patterns of different skulls could only happen? What does that mean? That's not scientific at all. These are the little things that they sneak by people. Because you don't usually think like that. You go, well, I need to see it or whatever. Or I need a little more, right? But
I mean, do you have another explanation for this?
Yeah, it's just going to be God did it. But specifically, like, he just gets confused based on the pictures that are on screen versus what I'm saying. I'm not talking about these fossils. I wrote that before I knew what picture I was going to have on screen for it. I'm talking about the overall pattern of transitional fossils being between two closely related groups. Like, the fact that whenever you have groups that have close genetic similarities, and then you can go and find fossils with transitional anatomy between those groups, that's the pattern that should only happen if evolution is true. Like, that's pretty obvious. I don't know of any other possible explanations other than God just tricking us into thinking that evolution is real with some sort of elaborate, divine hoax.
Mm-hmm. And if your God is willing to bend over backwards that far to trick you, is your God really worth praising? Just big old question mark there for me.
these little things that sneak by people, especially the proponents who are listening, they don't think about these little sneaky moves that this guy's doing, that they all do. He just declares it so that if you find skulls like this, it could only happen because of this presumption that the reason we tried to find these skulls is it's the only reason. How is that the case? I would love to ask these people, how do you know that's the only way? How do you know? That's the only way you could find things in a certain way. Where does this come from?
And indeed, the theory of evolution allows us to
Wait,
predict
real quick.
these transitional fossils.
So he's asking, how do you know that's the only way you find things in a certain way? Okay, let's try to unpack that. Like, again, I'm not just talking about these skulls on screen. I guess the visuals are just too confusing for this guy. If he was able to listen to my words, then he would understand that I'm talking about overall patterns of transitional fossils for everything, not just these specific skulls. Like, I just laid it out. I think he was pausing too much and maybe lost the plot a little bit. But again, when we see two closely related groups, we make a prediction that we should find an intermediate group in the fossil record. Then we find it in the fossil record. How else do you explain that pattern without evolution? You can't.
But Grayson, there's your assumption. How do you know they're related?
You
How
don't
do you
even
know
need
God
to.
didn't just create them so similarly?
Yeah, you don't even need to assume any relation at all. All you need to do is make the prediction for what you should find, and if you find it, that serves as evidence that your hypothesis was true.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Stop quoting the Big Lebowski until you've seen it, Doc.
All right, fine. Let's have a watch party.
I'm down.
There's
I'm
a-
always down to watch the Big Lebowski.
First of all, it's not even a theory. People say, well, it's just a theory. That's even a mistake from someone who's skeptical of evolution. Why would you grant that it's a theory? Ask them what a scientific theory is. A lot of them will
Now
actually think,
Do you know what a scientific theory is?
he's literally saying evolution is not even a theory. That's where we're at with this.
You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Before you ask, yes, I have seen that movie.
Okay, good.
Kiki is a massive fan of The Princess Bride. She made
Who
me say it.
isn't, though? Everyone loves that movie.
It was better than I expected.
It's amazing, Doc. Come on.
Like I said, better than I expected. I enjoyed it for sure. Sorry, it looks like I'm about to get murdered.
the BS position, and you could totally rail against it when they say it. They step in shit. They say, well, it's a hypothesis. What do you need for a hypothesis? You need to observe something.
I have.
What did you observe? Nothing. You observed nothing.
Example, dogs and bears are neighbors on the phylogenetic tree. So if the remains were preserved, then we should find fossils of dog-like bears and bear-like dogs, converging towards a common caniform ancestor. And indeed,
here we go. Someone drew another picture of a bear dog. And by the way,
We have the bones. Like, do you show the bones of Hemiscion?
I show the bones of amphicyonids like after this. I didn't show hemiscion bones, but like again, the name is right there. Anyone can Google it and look at the fossils themselves if they are so inclined.
Yep.
Like
Plus the
it's not like
65
these are just drawings. Like he's trying to say that these are
Mhm.
just illustrations, and he seems to want to imply that they're not based on any actual real tangible fossils that exist in the world. And it's like come on, dude. All of these, like, you could go and look at the fossils for these.
And also, sorry, I just realized that mass estimate. Jesus, that's big.
Well, it is a bear dog.
Yeah, fair.
Bears are big, man. I have high-fived
Yeah.
a bear one time, and that thing like completely overpowered my high five. Like I got crumpled.
I've seen a few bears before. They're surprisingly big, especially when they stand up. Except for black bears. Black bears are tiny.
Yeah.
something that looks like basically a hyena, right, is definitely evidence of a bear dog in transition. I mean, it's doing its trans thing.
That does not look like
All
a
right, people,
hyena.
fill out the looks like on your bingo cards.
Like, come, it does not look like a hyena. I don't even understand. Like, oh,
I mean,
like,
Satan's
wait.
lawyer here,
Let
it
me share
does
my
kind of
screen.
look like a hyena, but
Let
I
me
know
share
it's
my
not.
screen here because I actually
Sure.
just found, and he's gonna flame me because it's an illustration. But look, here is a hemiscion next, or an amphiscion rather, next to a hyena. Like these are different. They're very, very obviously different.
Yeah, but they are, but I can see someone without much background in biology saying it looks like a hyena. Like, I think that's fine to say, but that doesn't mean it is a hyena.
Yeah, okay. I can agree with that.
Especially since, as Richard Taylor points out, hyenas are actually feliforms. They convergently look like dogs. Really weird.
It's figuring out its identity. Now, I would ask him the same question. Why would you assume finding an animal that has features similar to a dog or similar to a bear or some weird combination? Why would you assume it's in transition?
You literally just explained that.
Yeah. I know. And it's not like you're making the assumption. Like you're predicting the anatomy and then you're finding fossils that have that transitional anatomy. There's no assumption.
Mhm.
It's their anatomy that makes them transitional because their anatomy is intermediate.
Yeah, like if you're up in the mountains and you find a cold stream and you say, "Oh, I bet this came from a glacier," you follow it upstream and you find a glacier. You didn't create a glacier. You used context clues to hypothesize where it came from.
Right? Why would you assume that? How could it? Why is it that it couldn't be the case that that's just another animal that existed? Drawing, yeah, all the drawings proves I got to draw a lot more. I got to draw a lot more. If this is working on people, there you go. You draw a picture, you make it kind of walk like a bear and half hyena, bear, and then you name it.
Fossils of bears with more dog-like characteristics were discovered in the 1920s.
Look at that discovery, you guys. Now, why is it base theory that when he says discovery, there's yet another illustration? Did you just assume my species? Huh? What is this? And there it is, the discovery.
Called hemicyanins. And even before that,
Sorry, did he just confuse himself?
Yeah, and look what I'm showing now. Oh, it's not an illustration. Anybody have any guesses as to how he's gonna react when he sees like an actual skeleton here? Could anybody say maybe moving the goalposts? No, no way, right?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I think Titan has it down. That's actually a tapioca weasel. Also, like, maybe it's just me. His little box annoys me because it
Yeah.
covers up part of your video. Like,
I
why?
agree. Terrible.
at the base
Look at that. Now, what's the likelihood of that entire thing on the screen being actual bones that they found? And what's the likelihood? Like,
Oh, for crying out loud! Even if it's a composite, they're from the same genus at the very least. Let me see. This is an amphicyanid, right?
Oh, I can already let me just share my screen here. I mean, if you want to actually see like the real bones, not like a museum like reconstruction for display, like look at that. It's a mostly complete skeleton.
Oh wow, yeah, shit.
Like, come on, dude. Like, are you serious? Like, oh, just because you have a left arm doesn't mean that you can assume a right arm.
Ah, man, sorry. Just coming at this from a dinosaur paleo perspective, like if you find that in something like that in dinosaur paleo, like you've made a career-defining discovery. But then mammal paleontologists just get this all the time. It's irritating.
Yeah.
But yeah, got that. That is a nice fossil though. Like that is a nice fossil. But you know, he's never gonna Google. Do you think he can spell an amphicyon?
Oh, he's gonna Google it.
Oh,
knowing your
no! I
processes,
gotta see this.
that some massive percent of what that is casted. And they go, well, yeah, but they have to finish it. Otherwise, you can't do the work. You have to cast all the rest of the bones and stuff. Oh, the bone. Okay, so you assume there's a bear dog, and then you find some fossilized animal, and you go, oh, there's this bear dog, and then you're like, oh shit, we only have 15% of it. And they go, don't worry, we have an idea of how to extrapolate the bear dog. So I have a builder coming in.
Basal caniforms, known as amphicyonids, were first discovered by Haeckel himself soon after Darwin published The Origin of Species. They are colloquially known as bear dogs. For another example, it was long predicted that ants.
I almost want to look this up for a second.
Oh,
Amphicyonids. Amphicyonids.
oh, I'm scared. I'm scared.
Any guesses what he's gonna say?
Yeah, it's exactly what I thought. You know, they find like a number of bones, and then they piece together their story of the bone.
Yeah, they
He's
find
missing
a
part of the
number
rib
of
cage.
bones. A number of bones. Yeah, you mean like 90% of a complete skeleton?
Holy crap! Like, oh, that is so dishonest.
Yeah, he Googled it and then didn't share his screen and then just told his audience, yeah, it's exactly like I thought. Like, I just showed you one of the specimens. That's just one. We have like, I think like 24 different like species of amphicyonids. Like, we have a huge amount of fossil specimens for this, like complete skeletons.
And like that picture you showed was one of the top results on Google. Here's one of the pictures from Wikipedia.
Yeah, like he had to have been looking at this, right? And being like, yeah, it's just like I thought.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And then they go, well, your standard is so high, Jimbob. I mean, we're not going to find these fully formed animals, right? We need to build off of what we have. Yeah, no shit.
Himself, soon after Darwin published another example, it was long predicted that ants evolved from non-social wasps in the Cretaceous period. But for most of the 20th century,
there's Jurassic Park right there. The power of Jurassic Park, let me tell you, that's all you need.
He just gets he gets so triggered based on the images that I include just like for people have something to look at.
Yeah. And like can't even acknowledge like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, like at this point, if he just sees any insect in amber, he's just like, oh yeah, Jurassic Park ripoff. Like, are you serious?
Like, even if you hate Grayson for whatever reason, at least acknowledge. Like, what did the bug do to you? Did the bug sting you?
Yeah, and yeah, we have like the transitional fossil that I'm about to bring up is from 1967, which let me check. Carry the 1, the 7, yeah, that's way before Jurassic Park came out.
A little bit, just a little bit. Not far ahead enough. They were psychic.
Evidently.
Extended to the early Cenozoic, and we didn't have any fossils from the Cretaceous itself. In 1967, however, this changed, as an ant species was found preserved in amber from the Cretaceous period.
Again, the whole begging the question of periods of time. What's their methodology? What's the margin of error? How did they determine margin of error?
Speaking, you're sorry, I had a point. My brain just decided to take it away from me.
Yeah, well, we can date like through multiple different means that we know that this was taken from a Cretaceous layer. I think it was found in a cliffside in New Jersey, and like you can radiometrically date like above and below that layer to get a bounded range. You can also like look at some of the isotopic composition like in the amber, in air bubbles in the amber. Like there are multiple independent ways of dating materials and fossils.
Now, see what you just said right there. That's just sciencey rock sorcery.
Oh yeah, I guess I'm begging the question. I'm affirming the consequent. Blah blah blah. Fallacy.
You can't trust those white-robed priests.
Yeah, those men with money and briefcases and shovels. Don't forget the shovels.
Hey, that's what they showed in Jurassic Park.
Of this dating system. Oh, it's just from the Cretaceous. Could it be not from there? Well, yeah, but we think it is. Okay. You just make shit up. You just make shit up. As long as you have the educational system that has some convincing way of taxonomy and categories, then that's really all you need to get people to sort of run with it. They don't. And
What?
by the way, most people are not invested in either or. When
Wait,
they're growing up, they do. Oh well.
so
I
he
have
said
no idea.
as long as you have academic institutions that have some convincing way of establishing taxonomic categories, then you have a dating method? What?
Something like that? Maybe?
Beamsy is calling me out. Can you highlight his comment here?
Oh, yep, just a second.
Beamsy,
oh.
the reason why I went with shovel is because Jim Bob earlier mentioned that like Neil Shubin was his prediction of Tiktaalik was just from the guys with the money and the shovels.
From the
So
Royal Society.
yes, I'm not exposing my ignorance of geology. I'm just making fun of the stupid things Jim Bob says.
Yeah. I mean, hey, the people handing out shovels during the gold rush made a ton of money. Maybe that's where he's getting that from.
Well, okay. There's people smarter than me. Do you know how many people walk around?
Sorry, truer words have never been spoken.
Yeah. The first actually true thing he said all night.
Oh, no.
Mostly as they grow up, just saying, well, no, there's obviously people smarter who know better. I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to risk my social status in high school. What are you kidding me? Decent.
When has that ever stopped a teenager from saying something stupid?
I'm distracted by D-Sims in the comment here saying something stupid. Dinosaurs are just Funko Pops for people who like to dig holes? What the fuck is that?
People are paying him money to say this. People are paying him money for this shit.
Sims 499 dinosaurs are just Funko Pops for people who like to dig holes. That's funny. That's true. That's true. It's just Funko Pops. Yeah, okay, we saw that. So yeah, he's going to, oh, it's from this period.
Had wasp-like structure with ant-like characteristics. In fact, there was debate about.
Are you telling me that ants kind of resemble wasps? And this is a surprise? Is it surprising that a wasp looks kind of like a larger ant with wings? I mean, what is this?
It's a
About whether it was a
transitional
wasp.
fossil, Jim Bob. That's a transitional fossil to answer your question of what is this? Like, I'm literally just describing like a fossil specimen in amber where like it was so similar to wasps and ants that like there was debate about whether it was a wasp or an ant for a few years.
Mhm.
That's a transitional because its anatomy is intermediate between the two.
And I mean, full disclosure, I'm not fully up to date on entomology, but I imagine there are quite a few differences between wasps and ants, even though they look superficially similar.
Yeah,
So finding a common ancestor could be a pretty big deal.
I'm about to highlight one of them, but yeah, the metapleural gland. You can kind of see it in this diagram, but we'll let it play a little bit more.
Yeah.
Wasp or an ant until it was finally.
So they didn't know if it was a wasp or an ant. So you found an old ant-looking wasp. Considering what could happen during the process of being, petrified and preserved in amber over whatever, in your view, millions of years, that the people who found it were just like, what is this? It seems like it's an ant or a wasp, and we can't figure it out. Why don't we invent a new category called transitional ant wasp?
First off, not what we did. Second, we can recognize distortion in a fossil and correct for it.
Yeah, like
It's
at this
not
point,
that hard.
is he insinuating that over time that the wasp in the amber just was distorted to look more ant-like, or the ant was distorted to make it look more wasp-like? Like
I think
what?
that is his argument, yes.
That's so absurd. It's like, well, Australopithecus is not really a missing link. It's just been distorted by the rocks to make it look exactly like it has the transitional anatomy that was predicted beforehand, that was observed in like very fine detail in its skeleton. It's just more God playing tricks on people.
A few tricks. And also, Beamsy's asking if we can get a picture of me smacking Sue on the nose. Why? Why, Beamsy?
Yeah, and tell me more. Literally nailed it. He said that Jim Bob is saying that the fossil evolved. Yeah, that's where we're at now, folks. The fossil itself has evolved over time.
Didn't know I was. I didn't know I was having a stream about a mystery novel tonight.
How do we verify that though? We can't.
Just
But
trying to
we
figure
can
out what the
declare
hell's
it
going
so,
on.
because why don't we just create a dot in between ant and wasp and say one needs to become the other? Why don't we just say that? Okay, cool. Well, I thought we were just going to say we can't tell if this is an ant or a wasp. Can you imagine finding an old animal and being like, I can't tell if this is a an ant or whatever else that's similar. I can't really tell. And instead of like going with your best guess of what it is based on what you know what things are, based on observation of what you can see, instead you say, well, if it's not one or the other and I can't decide, and we're going to do a jury, do some sort of evolution jury. The jury comes back and says we just don't know, we're undecided. And you go, well, the judge hits his evolution gavel and declares, I declare there's a new species in between the two because we can't really figure out which one it is. Seems reasonable.
Grayson, have you ever heard of Loki's wager?
No.
So Loki, the trickster
Yes.
god from Norse mythology?
Yes.
Well, there's a story that goes, I forget who they were, but some enemies of his had his head on the chopping block, and he told them that they could have his head, but they could not harm his neck. So they had to cut at the point where his neck ended and his head began. And they couldn't find it, and they kept arguing with each other, and I think he eventually slipped away in the confusion. Sometimes a transition is so gradual, you can't really pick a solid point where it switches.
Yeah, I mean
We have this for a lot of categories.
the point that he literally just made was, why should we conclude that it's a transitional species just because its anatomy is so transitional between ant and wasps that we can't even tell if it's an ant or a wasp? Why should we just conclude that its anatomy is intermediate between ant and wasps when its anatomy is so intermediate that we can't even tell which one it is?
Mhm.
It's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I want to turn this guy into a bobblehead.
You guys good? Yeah, and that'll get you more, guess what? Get you more research money.
Discovered to have a metapleural gland, which solidified its placement as a true ant, albeit the most anatomically primitive ant species known at the time, another transitional fossil.
What? How are you making these jumps, dude? They describe things and then they enter this like key feature and then they go voila. I mean, it's the laziest. It's really lazy, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, how am I concluding that's a transitional feature based on the fact that its anatomy is so intermediate that there was debate about if it was an ant or a wasp? How could I ever conclude that its anatomy was transitional? Wow, how could I make that huge leap in logic based on its actual transitional anatomy?
We're still sure this guy is real.
He is, trust me.
I would hate to hear his takes on politics.
They're terrible. They're just so awful. He complained about the Super Bowl, the ad for Jesus, because it was too woke, and he said that he doesn't care about football because it's just a bunch of black guys. Like, he's just so horrible.
Oh,
And
people
that's what
like
he
this
said.
can vote.
That's what he just said earlier in this stream. Like, that's how he started the stream, was by complaining about the Super Bowl.
He has a following too. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
You ever worry about the fate of the human race?
This guy definitely actively makes me wonder about it.
This is
Sometimes I wonder if we are
Reese
here
Martin,
just to
$5. Thank you.
suffer.
What happens? Oh, sorry. What debates have you done against evolution? And has inspiring philosophy reached out? No, he's not going to reach out. Based on his answer, it's going to take some pestering and some audience participation to, drive him, convince him to do it. Maybe it'll help if it's 2-on-2. Maybe you can get him and Redeem Zoomer and me and Posh. Evolution, Christianity. Is it compatible? That would be great. Maybe we can make a campaign for it. I've done one evolution debate against JF Galliappi and Richard Spencer when Posh and I attacked their lack of mechanism. The framework of the argument then, which would still work today, is that evolution is presented as a low resolution storyline, much like a circle drawn on a chalkboard. And from 30 yards away, it looks like a circle. As you get closer, you realize that it's just a bunch of dotted lines that make a circle, and you've completed the circle with your eyes and your mind. But when you look closer resolution, you see that the dots are not connected at all. It's in fact not a circle. It's an assumed circle. You just
Okay, but as time has gone on, we have added more and more and more and more dots, providing a clearer picture as we've made more discoveries. Your own analogy falls apart. In
Yeah.
some lines, we basically do have complete circles.
I've got no idea what he's even talking about with his stupid little circles.
ask simple questions. One of the best questions you can ask an evolution proponent, because we usually say, well, where do you get life? And they go, that's abiogenesis, dork. You don't even know the difference. It's abiogenesis. You go, okay, I'll grant you Genesis. Okay, you have life, simple form. Can you tell me how you get populations? Because you have a circle board that far away.
What is 1 + 1?
No, he doesn't understand that at literally every point in the evolution process, there was populations. There was never pre-population life. Like, that was never happened. He thinks that populations, like, he thinks that life started as an individual, and then he's like, well, how do you get populations when there's no other sex to mate with? It's like, dude.
Yes, because the first life forms were sexual reproducers.
Yeah, well, he completely misunderstands. I mean, he's gonna go on to characterize it, but I think that this is all that he has. I don't think he goes into my video any more than this. He then moves on to rationality rules and a video that he made about the evidence for evolution, and he starts talking about abiogenesis. But I'm okay to keep playing a little bit. I just, because this guy just continues to just get so much wrong, and he's gonna keep talking about the populations thing and how sex evolved, and it's pretty crazy the things he says.
Oh,
It looks like a nice clean circle. People accept it because it's a well-drawn circle from that far. But when we get closer and we ask you, how do you explain how this happens? They just reaffirm the phrases, natural selection, sexual selection, random mutation over time, changes in allele frequency. That doesn't explain anything. That describes
It does.
what you're asserting.
No. He's complaining when he gets
explain quite a few
answers to
things.
his question.
Well, because they're not the answer he wants,
Like,
which is, I give up, you won the debate.
he's saying, what's the mechanism? And somebody tells him mutation and natural selection. And he'd be like, oh, that's just the canned answer, but that's not a real explanation. It's like, yeah, dude, that's the exact answer to the question you asked.
Again, it's not the answer he wanted, so it's not valid. Come on, you've debated Kent before. You know how this works.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Actually, go to this next one, actually. Here we go. Watch. Wait, where is it? Hold on. Nope. Where is he? Rationality. Where's this guy?
Sorry, I do just want to say, I saw Royal Tyrrell there. The Royal Tyrrell Museum in Canada has a YouTube channel, and they upload like a bunch of talks from paleontologists on there. Really fun YouTube channel, like genuinely. I have it on in the background when I'm working on fossils. I've learned a lot from it. Just wanted to shout that out because I saw it.
Rationality rules. Hold on a second. Because there's another one that I was looking at. I think we tore into this guy. He's just going to reassert more of this stuff, by the way. Let me find my. Yeah, the Viking guy. He
Before we even
I don't say theory, I say a view.
Here we go.
Before we even begin this video, a simple but necessary clarification must be made. People very often confuse abiogenesis with evolution when they shouldn't. Abiogenesis is the study of how life first emerged from non-living matter, and it's not discussed within this video. Evolution, on the other hand, is the study of biological change over time.
Right there. That is, what do they call it? The weak dragon scale? Right there. It's right there. It can't be.
I mean, it's a valid point to make.
Yeah, they literally
Like-
are two different fields of science.
Like, if you want to shove God in that tiny little gap and say God created the first life, we
Oh,
can't
no,
prove
he
you're
doesn't.
wrong yet.
He does
You can
not want
say
to
it.
do that. He distinctly wants to say that evolution is not real and neither is abiogenesis, and that we are made in God's image, which I guess makes God look like this guy.
No.
Yeah,
Well,
that'll
I
give
mean,
you nightmares.
maybe. I mean, from what I've heard, the God of the Bible is an interesting character.
Any clearer. They say, well, we're not discussing the beginnings of life. We're discussing change in heritable characteristics of biological populations over successive generations. Well, if we granted you Genesis and life, however, whatever story works for you, bro. Aliens came and pooped, and then they came out of the alien poop, and it was just a magical time. Whatever you want. We grant you replicators. We'll grant you, a variety of different small organisms that do stuff. Maybe they self-multiply, right? Great. Now, being that evolution is the change in heritable characteristics of biological populations over successive generations, the point is you have this thing called populations. And for someone who's questioning evolution, they have every reason to say, well, how does evolution generate populations? And then the proponent can't say, no, that's abiogenesis. We're not talking about that.
Okay. The simplest organisms we have alive today and that we have evidence for are asexual reproducers. It stands to reason that the simplest life of all, at the start, was most likely also an asexual reproducer.
I need
You
to
only
clarify
need
there, Doc.
one.
I need to clarify there. A population of asexual reproducers. Like at no point in the entire process was there ever not a population. Like even before life in abiogenesis, you still have a population of self-reproducing chemical systems. Like it's still a population.
I will agree with you, but I will say, at least like my personal definition for a population is a group of of replicating organisms. But that's more just my personal definition. Like I start at life. Before that is self-replicating molecules, which it's complicated, especially where like is the first thing alive actually alive, or is it more like a virus?
Yeah, it's obviously a graded scale, but I'm saying there's a group of them. It's not an individual. My point still stands, whether you want to nitpick the semantics of it. There's a population of self-replicating molecules in the beginning. There's never any one individual. You don't just go boom, and then there's one little cell that then asexually reproduces and makes a population when there wasn't one originally. At every single step, there is a population that has a variety of fitness levels.
That is fair. Inglés es un poco complicated.
No, we are talking about
English complicated.
because evolution, from your view, a process and a mechanism, must account for pre-populations to existing populations. They need to account for the splitting off of the sexes. And how could you possibly make that make it make sense, being that the very process of splitting into?
I mean, it's a bit complicated, but it's not hard to explain sex evolving.
He just said that there was a pre-population state and then a population state. There was never a pre-population state of life. Again, there's populations all the way down at every stage. And like he just doesn't understand that sexual reproduction has an evolutionary advantage. He just cannot wrap his head around the fact that sexual reproduction, as opposed to asexually reproducing populations, sexually reproducing populations have much more genomic variability and can
Mhm.
be a lot more robust in terms of their adaptability because of that genomic variability, and do generally have evolutionary advantages over asexual populations.
Yeah. I mean, like the way I rationalize it in my head is like sexual reproducers are generally better at maintaining a population, while asexual reproducers are better at starting a population. Because when you have fewer members, sexual reproducers struggle a bit.
You need to be accurate here with your words, Doc. When you say starting a population, you got to clarify what you mean there. Like,
Like if you move to a new area, you
there you
need
go.
more sexual reproducers to have a stable population that won't just die out of recessive mutation overload.
Yeah, you're talking about starting establishing a population in a new area,
Yes.
not just
Yes, you're
establishing one for the first time when there were no populations beforehand. Every individual organism exists as a part of a population.
yes. Even if it's a population of one.
If they're going extinct, maybe, sure, but I mean, you're adding way too too much nuance to this conversation for this Jim Bob guy.
Okay, for Jim Bob, yes, this is biology leaking in.
Like if it's the literally the last member of its species, okay, it's not part of a population. But it still had parents, so it's not like it was just existing on its own in a pre-population state.
Right. Sorry. They I think this guy has me in a fighting mood, so I'm just kind of picking at things. I'm sorry.
Multiple sexes is not an advantage at all. It's actually a risk. It actually requires more energy, more risk, more the distance and process between two things that are required to come together to produce is completely antithetical to survival of the fittest. If an
I mean, a lot of organisms just like release that stuff into the water and let it let it float away and hope for the best, and it works.
He just straight up doesn't understand what the actual advantage is for sexual reproduction. Like he just doesn't know it. And he is like making the assumption that there is no advantage and that it's just
Mhm.
disadvantageous because it requires more energy or more like more resources to accomplish sexual reproduction. But like that's a trade-off because as a population, the population benefits from sexual reproduction.
Mhm. And evolution doesn't care about what takes more work and what doesn't, as long as you still reproduce. Oh yeah, also Andrew Cumming brings up creationists also keep forgetting about hermaphrodites.
Oh, he doesn't. He's about to bring them up.
Oh no.
if a creature has it all in house, all of the machines that they need in house to replicate, why would they go away from replication? And why would so many animals go in that direction? It should be basically, if you were to take evolution wholesale as true, it seems more the case what we should see is a couple of animals miraculously splintered off from self-replicating, some sort of hermaphroditic, seahorse style breeding. And miraculously, there's
Seahorses aren't hermaphroditic?
Right. That's like what? Yeah, seahorses sexually reproduce. It's just that the male seahorse like is the one that like carries the offspring in a pregnancy. Like he's just is so confused about the basic facts of biology here. Like he even like acknowledges that there are some hermaphroditic species, but then lists seahorses as his example. It's like, like I think I hurt myself from face palming too hard.
For anyone who's curious, If you want to evolve sexual reproduction with distinct sexes and not hermaphrodites, it's pretty easy if you start with hermaphrodites. And some of them are better at producing gamete A, and some are better at producing gamete B. It's expensive to make both, so some might prioritize one over the other and make more of one than the other. And that gets passed on because they're spending less energy. And so on and so forth until one produces barely any, if any at all, of gamete B, and the other produces barely any, if any at all, of gamete A. They have separated into sexes that are still dependent on each other for the continuation of the species. It's not hard. It's a natural consequence of variation. Sorry, words. Oh, yeah, and true. Some organisms don't really have different kinds of gametes.
There's a couple of animals that split off into sexes and somehow survived, being that separating the sexes.
Oh, right, and then Titan brings up, how about plants? Plants are a confusing mess. That's what plants are.
I think everything just confuses this guy. I mean, he does. He just straight up just cannot wrap his head around the fact that sexual reproduction has advantages for populations that more than compensate for the costs.
Mm-hmm. Like, sorry if sex is such a bother for you, mate, but that's a you problem.
And making that a necessary tribulation to get over in order to reproduce is completely a problem. But no, we see the opposite. We see the exception is that there are some animals that have it all in-house. That's the exception. Why would that be? That's how I replicate. Why would that be the exception? It should be the opposite. It's insane that they think they go, well, what evolution is what we see today is because it worked the best. Really?
Yes.
At what point did it,
Yes.
In the process of the organism having no say in the matter, by the way, strictly reactive to the environment, no purpose, no ability of future, doesn't have a self-assessment system to tell you whether something's working or not. It's just reflexive. And yet there's a little organism, pre-monkey even from their view, pre-population. What is a pre-population human being? Because they have to tell you, right? So if evolution's true,
Not.
Look, they have to you have to tell him, Doc, what is a pre-population human being? He said you have to tell him if evolution is true.
Can you make a smarter question?
If you can't answer that question, Doc, then evolution can't be true.
I wish to answer with violence. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, there's no such thing as a pre-population anything. Jimbob is just like he has had so many stupid assumptions that have just piled one on top of the other so much that he's just at the point of asking like questions that literally don't even make any sense. Like he's so deep in the straw man and Dunning-Kruger that like he thinks that he's disproved like hundreds of years of science, one of the most verified theories of science, that he's just saying it's not even a theory. It's not even based on observations. I mean, show me a pre-population human monkey. As we've clarified many times before, there's no such thing as a pre-population anything. There's populations at literally every single step. And there are evolutionary advantages to a population that does sexual reproduction because it increases the variety of the population's genome, which allows it to adapt better to changing environments. And no, you don't need any foresight or any intentionality. All you need is differentiated fitness effects across a population that self reproduces and inherits those changes over time.
Sorry, Grayson. This dude already has my brain exploding.
Yeah, I don't know how much more of this I can take either. He's
Let's
already I don't think that he ever goes back to the rest of my video. He watched mainly the introduction and got through 2 of the dozens of examples of transitional fossils that I brought up. And now he's just asking nonsense questions and getting basic facts of biology wrong, which I guess he's been doing the whole time.
Is it bad that I would rather go have an aneurysm on SFT right now?
Well, we can wrap it up here.
I am to that point. I guess
mean, honestly, same. I mean, we can just go to make fun of SFT. Like, at least it's, it's more fun.
Yeah. I guess thanks everyone for joining. Grayson, thank you for the headache. I need Tylenol. That was awful.